Tom, what makes a church a church? I mean, starting a new worshiping community, for anybody starting one, I'm sure there's going to be a thought of what makes a church a church. There's going to be criticism that maybe what you start doesn't look like church to me. How do you resolve that? How do you reconcile that?
I think that there's a lot of good answers. The answer that works for me is that when I started our new worshiping community, I didn't know what to call it because people didn't have the phrase new worshiping communities back then. So I just came up with the name Community Worship Hour. And I didn't feel that we could call it a church, and that was for one reason. I think churches ultimately exist to serve the people outside their walls. Certainly there's a place to care for and love and serve the people within the walls. But if you don't have a significant outreach element to your family faith, your congregation, your church, I don't think you can call it a church. And so it was only when we got to the place where we transitioned from being a mission ourselves as a startup to getting to the place where we, with enthusiasm and intention and energy, served other people that didn't have anything to do with us or we weren't going to benefit from because they were going to show up and put something in the hat. When we were serving those people, I feel like that's when we truly became church, you know. And it took a few years for us to get to that place. And frankly, even when we changed our name to become the Community Church after 3 years, it still took us a few years until we found a meaningful outreach fit for us and really became a church. So I think that's, for me, a definition of church in a big way, as a community that really cares for and serves those people outside its own walls.
And in the community church example, there was the participation in community events, Kids Uganda, Beacon, is it called Beacon Place?
Beacon Place.
Beacon Place, and sort of other kind of short-term projects
Food
as well.
pantries, that's right. And that's ongoing.
Yeah.
And part of our job is to always keep our eyes open and our hearts and minds open to the sort of direction that God's calling us. And to be perfectly honest, as a non-denominational church, we didn't have a bishop or a committee or a regional organization saying, oh, here's what you need to do, or you need to support this.
So you're not Archbishop or
Archbishop.
You're not Archbishop Tom Dickelman? Is that not?
No, but I'd like you to start calling me that, please. And so we wanted to do something that was hands-on. I mean, what's unique about our church, another way, is that we don't have a line item in our budget for outreach.
For mission?
Some people, for mission, exactly.
It's church as mission. It's
church as mission.
Yeah.
It's hands-on, and we do extra and unique kinds of things. So one of the ways we've done outreach is by starting a separate 501c3 called Kids Uganda. And people from our church are the leaders in that organization, but it's entirely separate. We felt that was the best way that we could serve. I also think that it's in some ways an outdated model for churches to have significant mission funding as part of their budget. I know I'll take a lot of heat for that, and I understand the arguments on both sides. I just think that the model that idea is based on comes from decades and hundreds of years ago, when the church didn't have, when the church was the sort of one educated community center, and they knew that if they gave money to the church, that would go to these good causes in the right sort of way. I think that still happens today, but I think what we have now is information, and we have educated
more access
consumers. And so if you want to know about whether you want to give to Kids Uganda or the United Way or the local hospital or Bread for the World or the Cool Food Pantry, you can gather that information yourself, and you can make an informed decision as to whether or not that's a charity or a mission that you want to support. And sometimes the church gets itself in trouble by trying to be the middleman and be everything for everybody and doing things which aren't politically wise. And so they give money to a controversial person or group like they did with Angela Davis in the 1960s, You know, I had a friend who emailed me 2 weeks ago, and he said, a person in my church is so frustrated with our denomination that he's withholding his $6,000 a year pledge from the church because he's ticked at the pattern for giving. Now, whatever percentage, $60 of that would go to the larger denomination, but he's ended up messing up the local mission of that church as well. It seems to me that the wiser thing, or our calling, is to help people have dynamic, authentic faith that informs how they make decisions regarding their charitable giving and their mission, rather than saying, give to us and we're going to decide where we want to dole it out. And so that's just a different model. I understand both sides of it. I just prefer to believe in our educated and wise giving population.
Yeah. Tom, you've talked about the things that you focus on as a micro church, so to speak, at Community Church. And I've done a lot of thinking in seminary with other friends about what is church. And I'd love it if at the end of this video people left a bunch of comments as to what they think church is and what it can still contribute, because people are asking, is church still relevant?